Okay, dear colleagues, please take a seat. We are now to start the second session for this afternoon. Maybe I can say something more agreeable in French. We have a coffee break, not now, but after this session, so we can be prepared for that. Afterwards, I will come again. So this session is about recent milestones and key initiatives. We will have 4 presentations. One from the Division of Science Policy and Basic Science of UNESCO, and 3 from WFEO members. So I start to thanks to these 4 presenters. I hope that we will have a very nice meeting now. And I must invite the first one. That is Dr. Ana Persic from the Division of Science Policy and Basic Science of UNESCO. Please, Ana, it's yours.
Thank you very much, Professor, and welcome to everybody to UNESCO one more time. We're very happy to be here and also to present the UNESCO Recommendation on Open Science. This session, as we were organizing it, is about some new developments, some new initiatives, some new frameworks. And the UNESCO Recommendation on Open Science, which was adopted by the General Conference in November last year, is indeed one of these new developments, new frameworks, a new way of doing science and promoting knowledge across the world. And I think it's an important framework to also discuss with the engineering community, because there is a lot that we can learn from each other and contribute to each other. So just to start, as the title of the presentation is the UNESCO Recommendation on Open Science, also as a framework for acceleration of the achievement of Sustainable Development Goals. Indeed, as it was said previously, we do see science, technology, and innovation underpinned also by engineering at the core of the Sustainable Development Goals. So whether it's the economic goals, social type of goals, all goals dealing with environmental sustainability, we cannot achieve them if there is no science, if there is no technology, innovation, if there is no engineering. So really it is critical to mobilize STI, science, technology, innovation, for the purpose of SDGs. However, of course, we know that across the world, there are huge gaps in science, technology, innovation. There is huge gaps in the scientific systems that can underpin the knowledge that we need to be able to achieve sustainable development goals. And we also have very big gaps in terms of access to scientific information. And this is just a little example of gaps in access to scientific publications with regards to the different sustainable development goals. And we see that the percentage of those articles related to sustainable development goals that are in open access, meaning that are freely available for everybody to read, they range from some, 34% for clean energy, for in energy-related fields, to the maximum of 58% in the area of health. And that 58% is probably there because of the COVID-related articles in the past few years. So we see that basically we have some, 60% of articles related to SDGs, which are actually closed in access. They are behind some kind of paywalls and not everybody can access them. And we have seen with the COVID that can be completely reversed. In fact, in general, while we have some 70% of scientific publications locked behind paywalls, we have 85% of COVID-19 related publications which are actually open access. So it is possible to find ways to open access to scientific information, be it the COVID-19 related publications, be it the data that goes with it. There is a way, when there is will, to open it up and to make sure that everybody has access to the underpinning information, which is then critical for finding solutions. That is one of the reasons also why we see this need for open science, which goes beyond just open access to scientific articles. It's because we really do need timely and free access to scientific data, publication, and information in dealing with different crises, but also in dealing with sustainable development goals. We see the importance of scientific collaborations and sharing of information at all levels, and the need to really enhance those collaborations. And we also see the need for a very healthy, dynamic science policy society dialogue, because even if we do have a good scientific community, good products in science, if this dialogue with society, with policy doesn't work, it will be very difficult to have solutions, again, uptaken from the knowledge that we have. So all this to say, there really is a need, and particularly clear these days and after the COVID pandemics, to open up science, both in terms of opening it up to the scientific community, but also opening it up to the rest of the society. So as I said, we have the Sustainable Development Goals. They are very complex, there are very many, they deal with very, very concrete issues that people are facing daily in different countries. And to be able to overcome these global challenges, we really need science that is more accessible, that is more efficient, equitable, transparent, collaborative, and inclusive, so that we can find innovation and sustainable solutions. We also do have to enforce, more than we are currently doing, the human right to science, the human right to enjoy the benefits of scientific advancement, as it is in the declaration, the UN Declaration on Human Rights. And we also can use open science as a very good tool to bridge these gaps between science, technology, innovation that exist between countries and also within countries. So this need for open science was very much acknowledged by UNESCO and by all of its member states. And actually, even before the COVID crisis, in 2019, UNESCO has started a conversation on the need to have a global framework for open science. So a global normative framework that would lay out the definition of open science, the key values, the key principles of how open science needs to be done, and also what are the key actions that different actors of open science need to undertake. So for over 2 years, we've had consultations with different countries, with different actors. We have realized that open science really needs openness beyond the scientific community. We were talking to publishers, we were talking to innovators, to engineers, to policymakers, and many other actors, to be able to come up with a text of the recommendation, which was then negotiated by member states and then adopted unanimously in November last year. And so just to give you an idea, these UNESCO recommendations are legal instruments, they're normative legal instruments that formulate the principles and norms around a certain issue, and then invite member states to take whatever necessary legal, legislative, or other steps to be in conformity with those norms. So even though we call it a bit of a softer law, it's not like a convention, the member states are still obliged to adhere to these principles and also to report back to UNESCO every 4 years on the progress made. So as I said, the recommendation kind of gives us a definition that is now globally acceptable of what open science is. And I think what is very interesting with this first internationally agreed upon definition is that it's very broad. And it does not say that open science is one thing. It says that open science is an ensemble of processes that make scientific knowledge openly available, accessible, reusable, that increase the scientific collaboration, sharing of information, and it also tends to open the processes of scientific knowledge creation, evaluation, and communication to societal actors beyond the traditional scientific community. So the idea, again, is to open up science to scientists and go beyond that. We have identified different pillars of open science, so open scientific knowledge with the open access to scientific publications, open educational resources, open software, open hardware, but also open science infrastructures, both virtual and digital. Open engagement with societal actors, so again, going beyond your traditional scientific collaborations, engaged through scientific volunteering or citizen science or participatory science, and then also this open dialogue with other knowledge systems, for example, indigenous or traditional knowledge systems. And the idea here really is to engage in a dialogue to make sure that all available knowledge is there when we have to address certain challenges, particularly important at the local level. Another very interesting point in the recommendation is that it really sets out the values and principles of open science and considers science as a global public good. So in that way, the values related to quality, integrity, collective benefit, equity, fairness, diversity, and inclusiveness are really at the core of open science without losing, again, on the quality of science. So opening up science does not mean that we're going to lose the quality of science. It actually should mean exactly the opposite, because if scientific processes are more transparent, if the data is more openly available, they are more easily verifiable, they can be reproducible. So it actually does increase the quality of science as well, while also promoting the equity and fairness when it comes to benefits that can come out of science. So what another interesting point, because we are talking about openness of science to society, is also the fact that there are so many different actors. And of course, engineering community is also one of the very important actors that scientists need to engage more with, and that need to try to find some additional avenues for collaborations for the future, particularly, again, when it comes to finding solutions to the achievement of SDGs. Going back to the recommendation, again, there are different areas of action that are proposed in the recommendation, and they go from creating an enabling policy environment to investment in human and institutional resources, promotion of collaborations, innovative approaches at all levels, and then also promoting a common understanding of open science and fostering a culture of open science as well. Of course, we are aware that there are different challenges to implement the recommendation, and one of them indeed is to create these partnerships among different actors and make sure that mechanisms exist in different institutions that will bring the different partners together and the different actors together. There is the need to change the conventional scientific culture so that we value more openness rather than some other metrics that we usually use to evaluate careers and success and rewards for the scientists. There is a need to build capacity, to invest in adequate infrastructures, including reliable internet connectivity. As I said, alignment of incentives, revision of criteria for evaluation of scientific excellence, and then also looking into some of the possible unintended consequences of open science practices. So all these different challenges, but ways to address them as well. And there is a role for, again, every single actor in the science, technology, innovation, engineering system. What at the international level from the Secretariat we are trying to do at this point is really to support member states for the implementation of the recommendation by developing different supporting tools, whether it's briefs, fact sheets, guidelines, trying to unpack what is inside the recommendation and trying to explain to different actors what does that mean and what do they need to do to be able to implement the recommendation. We are also collecting and mapping different open science policies, strategies, best practices, analyzing some of the financing mechanisms. What does it mean to fund for open science? How is that different from funding for non-open science? And what are the benefits of that? promotion of open science infrastructures, building capacity, and then development of a monitoring framework for open science. And we would like to do that, and we are doing this in collaboration with our partners. So we have the Global Open Science Partnership. The WFEO is part of that partnership, and so we invite all the members to get more involved into the work that we are doing around open science recommendation. We'll have a steering committee for open science and then a variety of open science working groups, which are open for everybody, so anybody at any point can be part of these working groups as well. These are just some of the tools, the guides, checklists, and fact sheets that we will be launching in December at the World Science Forum in Cape Town. But there will be more, and we are very, very open to additions, including, for example, the role of engineering in open science and how we can, what does open science mean for engineering, what are the benefits, what are the opportunities or challenges as well. So I'm going to stop here, invite you, of course, to have a look at our website, to contribute to the different calls on open science that we have, to join the working groups, to join us at the World Science Forum if you happen to be there in December next year, and just to follow our work on open science. So thank you very much for that.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Ana Persic, for your very comprehensive presentation. Maybe I can have a kind suggestion when you talk about open science, but a lot of those items are engineering, not science. Maybe you can put open science and engineering or open science and technology. Thank you very much for your, thank you. Okay, this our fight against this, yeah, because science is more in the past. The future is innovation. Innovation is engineering. Okay, now I will take, I give the floor to Dr. Marlene Kanga. Marlene Kanga is our WFEO Past President, and she comes from Australia. So a little bit far from here. Marlene, the floor is yours, please.
Yes, good afternoon again. It's my great pleasure to talk about some of the projects and achievements in engineering education. Before I start, I wanted to say that there are a number of documents on the table outside, and those documents also present a brief report on the work that we have been doing. So you please pick up a copy. We've also established a web page on the WFEO website where these documents are all available electronically, including, I think, the disaster risk management work that will be presented, and we will put up all the slides as well, so you have, so you have access and can look at them later. So my first project that I'm going to speak about is a collaborative project on climate change education, which we are running as a pilot in Mauritius in partnership with UNESCO, with the Office of Climate Change and Education, which is a UNESCO Category 2 center, with the Institution of Engineers Mauritius, a national member of WFEO. It's funded by the National Environment Agency of Singapore, and it's also being supported by the Mauritius Institution of Education, the Mauritius National Commission to UNESCO, and the Mauritius Ministry of Education, Science and Technology. So you can see it is truly a partnership project. We started this in 2019 and hoped to complete in 2020, but COVID struck. So our journey is continuing, and we hope to complete this year. Before I start, I want to introduce Dr. Simone Klein, who's here from Simon, if you want to stand up. So he's one of the trainers from Office of Climate Change Education, and ran the first session and is traveling to Mauritius in November. And Mr. Raj Prayag, President of the Institution of Engineers Mauritius, who's also here today and will be speaking at a panel. So this is truly a partnership project. We can't deliver without our local national member, and we really thank our Institution of Engineers Mauritius. So because of COVID, we did an online event in June 2021, 29th and 30th, where we had some 70 teachers and teacher trainers from Mauritius and the island of Rodrigues attend. And you can see here some of the speakers, the then president of the Institution of Engineers Mauritius, Mr. Shyam Roy, presenting. And here you have Dr. Simone Klein presenting online, and a teacher engaging in the Q&A. And this led to a community of practice and tremendous interest. The workshop in November is scheduled over four and a half days, and it'll be face-to-face again with 80 teachers. It will be run at the Ministry of Education, and it will provide training for primary and secondary school teachers, and also for teacher trainers. A long-term outcome is permanent change to the curriculum for school children, primary and secondary, in the area of climate change education, and this is supported by the Ministry of Education. We are also in partnership, of course, with UNESCO, and we will use the UNESCO Sandwatch materials for a hands-on project at the beach. Secondly, so before I go on to that, I wanted to say that any UNESCO member states that are interested, please talk to us, talk to Dr. Simone Klein. We now have a template for a project that we can run in future years, and this will be handed over to the WFEO Committee for Engineering and the Environment. Now that we understand what needs to be done, it was quite complex putting it together, but we'd really like to run some more of these projects with our members around the world. The second project is on engineering education, and you see here the logos of some of our international partners who are supporting us in this project. The International Federation of Engineering Education Societies, International Network for Women Engineers and Scientists, the International Federation of Consulting Engineers, which employs 40% of the world's engineers, the International Engineering Alliance, which provides governance on the education benchmarks and mutual recognition, and the UNESCO Category 2 Center, the International Center for Engineering Education at Tsinghua University in China. Professor Vieira has already mentioned the Paris Declaration that was signed at our 50th anniversary on the 7th of March 2018 here at UNESCO. This declaration had three important statements in terms of advancing the UN Sustainable Development Goals through engineering. The first was to increase the number and quality of engineering graduates. The second was to inform the global standards for engineering education and to ensure that these standards met the requirements for sustainable development. And the third was to support capacity building through building strong institutions in engineering education. And these, of course, advance the Sustainable Development Goals, which has been part of our vision since our General Assembly in 2017. These engineering education projects advance three goals for education, Goal 4, for developing institutional capacity, Goal 16, and of course, working in partnership, Goal 17. Professor Gonki has already mentioned the second, the UNESCO engineering report, and chapter 1, which I authored, had three key recommendations. The first is that governments, engineering educators, industry, and professional engineering institutions need to collaborate to increase the number and quality of engineers. There's also a need to work in partnership to develop the necessary international engineering education benchmarks for sustainable development. And thirdly, these benchmarks need to be recognized across the world and form the basis of national engineering education systems for engineers with the right skills in Asia, Africa, and Latin America. So the first major achievement was the completion of the review of the engineering education benchmark in partnership with the International Engineering Alliance. This was completed in record time, commenced in November 2019, and approved by the signatories of the Alliance in June 2021 and published in September 2021. And our partners at the UNESCO Category 2 Center, International Center for Engineering Education at Tsinghua University, has translated this into the 6 official UNESCO languages, and these are now just awaiting approval by the signatories before they are published. So this translation is the first time that this has been done and will provide inclusive access around the world to these important benchmarks. So the global action also is to develop engineering education systems that comply with these benchmarks. This includes training and mentoring and support the development of engineering education systems and accreditation of programs, and training of educators to understand the benchmarks and how they design curriculum, for instance, to meet those requirements of the graduate outcomes. We are also looking at building institutional capacity, especially for professional engineering institutions and accreditation bodies in countries where these sometimes don't exist, by supporting the development of institutional capacity, governance, and providing training, for example, in leadership development, finance systems, and so on. Here is a map of currently of where mutual recognition systems for engineering education exist and therefore support the mobility of engineers. The orange areas is the European system with 27 nations, and so that is the governing body of that is called ENAEE. And there's mutual recognition across Europe and mobility, therefore, of engineers. The dark green areas represent the 29 nations and 41 jurisdictions of the International Engineering Alliance. And the gray areas there are the gaps. There's Africa, there's Asia, and there's Latin America. And these are the gaps that we as WFEO are working to fill. We currently have 3 projects in various stages of development in Africa, and we're looking to expand into other parts of the world. So in terms of the work that is being done, this is a global project. And we're working with the International Engineering Alliance to provide the experts in engineering education, the experts that are familiar with the benchmarks and the process of accreditation to get to that international standard. All these experts are providing their support on a volunteer basis. So it's truly open science in action and knowledge transfer. And many of these mentors are WFEO members as well and have come forward to support us. And so I've named some of the countries you can see: Pakistan, India, Malaysia, South Africa, China, and Turkey have come forward. And the program is coordinated by the Secretariat for the Education Committee, which is based in Myanmar. And here are some of the meetings that we've held, again, because of COVID, online, and you can see the collaborative work that is going on. And in fact, in Mauritius, we have made tremendous progress and actually had a site visit in June to visit the universities and put, having done the work in terms of procedures and structures and practices, we're now actually working on the accreditation system and training the educators. And you can see the picture on the left, the lady in the purple sari is the Minister for Education, Science and Technology. And we had there at that opening session all the important leaders in engineering and in tertiary education, from quality management, from accreditation bodies, from the Institution of Engineers, and so on. Professor Gonki also briefly mentioned the WFEO Academy, and this is also an activation of open science principles in engineering to transfer skills at no cost to all members of WFEO members. So this enables knowledge transfers from experts in engineering education to our members, affiliates, and partners. And it's a sustainable approach. We're using the knowledge of experts as presented in various webinars around the world, which are sometimes only presented once and never looked at again. So our partners have generously given us their webinars, and we've put them curated them carefully into topics that are relevant for the purpose of engineering education, development of curricula that align with the graduate attributes and professional competency benchmarks, and also accreditation and understanding of the process of getting to that international recognition status. And this, of course, is accessible at any time on demand. The website can be translated into more than 100 languages. And so this has tremendous training benefits as well. And it's successfully and easily accessed. And again, we have the cohorts, particularly in Mauritius, who have accessed this material with no difficulties and have derived benefit straight away. We're very grateful to the support of ADG Shamila Nair Beduel, who has supported all our projects, including the review of the graduate attribute and professional competency benchmark, the development of this academy portal, and here you see her message there supporting the portal, and the acknowledgement again that this is a good example of how open science principles in engineering can be delivered. And here you have some screenshots of the various languages. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Marlene, for your always eloquent presentation. Now we have the next speaker is José Macharé. Is our chair of the Committee on Disaster Risk Management, and is from Peru. And the theme will be engineering initiatives in disaster risk management. Okay, José.
Thank you very much. Distinguished authorities, delegates of the member states, dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. In this presentation, in the same line that the previous one, I want to convince you of the important role and participation and contribution that engineering provides, in my case, for the disaster risk management. Good. Despite several efforts deployed in the last 30 years, but disaster continue occurring. Okay, every year we see huge damage and loss. The economic losses counts in terms of billions of dollars. In this period, tens of thousands of lives were lost. Not always mentioned, but there are lots of permanent disabled people, homeless, and also displaced people from their zones. What we call the built environment, it is the social infrastructure, is severely damaged or destroyed. Also, natural environments and cultural heritage are also strongly affected. At the end, every catastrophic event seriously hampers and delays the development of countries. This reality, in fact, threatens the achievement of the SDGs. Mainly for us is the SDG 11, Sustainable Cities and Communities, but also those related to the built environment, like the 9 concerning infrastructure, 7 the clean energy, or 6 the clean water provision. Finally, there are, or we cannot forget, the other related, the other SDGs related to nature, as number 13 on climate action, number 14 of life below water, and 15 life on land, because every disaster affects the whole society. What is the CDRM, the Committee on Disaster Risk Management? Is one of the standing technical committees of WFEO. It's composed by 30 members now from the 5 continents, and organized in 5 working groups. All these people work evidently pro bono, gathering and providing information on the best engineering practices, and discussing on them to finally release knowledge and recommendations aimed to reduce and avoid disasters. This is our goal. All this is done within the framework of the 3 main global agreements, the Agenda 2030, the Paris Agreement on climate change, and also of the Sendai framework for disaster risk reduction. The WFEO has still entrusted the hosting and chairmanship of the committee to the Colegio de Ingenieros del Perú, that gives generous administrative and logistic support to the activities of the committee. This year, we have approached more closely these 3 institutions that you can see there: the UNESCO, the Disaster Risk Reduction Unit, the Global Program for Disaster Risk Analytics of the Global Facility on DRR from the World Bank, and also the Integrated Research on Disaster Risk, that is a joint program of the International Science Council, ISC, and the United Nations Disaster Risk Reduction Office. As results and products, we have other working groups and committees perform webinars and technical sessions, short courses, and publications. After having worked for several years on face-to-face meetings, the COVID-19 pandemics led us to, as for others, led us to webinars. And they have been very productive indeed. We have organized lots of webinars, including those related to the context of the COVID-19, treating as a disaster. All short courses were organized up to 4 short courses directed to young engineers mainly. And maybe the main activity, the main product for us is this booklet. It's a booklet of some barely 70 pages called Engineering Resilience in Disaster Risk Management for sustainable development. It was written in 5 chapters by most of the members of the committee. It was launched, in fact, presented on May of this year in a side event of the 7th Annual Multi-Stakeholder Forum on Science, Technology, and Innovation for SDGs in New York. And in June of this year, in the framework of the 17th anniversary of the Colegio de Ingenieros, we presented a translated to Spanish version of the book. After this, on every chapter, we organized several webinars and to expand and to discuss further the conclusions. I am not going to give you the list of recommendations on these main chapters. You can find it in the summary leaflet. There is a 2-page summary leaflet out of the room. So they deals on land use planning, on infrastructure systems, on data and information management, on institutional frameworks for DRM, and on capacity building. Just to finish, 2 key concepts for everybody, not only for engineers or scientists, are those of culture of risk. I would like to insist that means that at all times, in every moment, one have to be aware that a hazardous event can happen. Really, it will happen. Also that there is a risk of losing assets, property, health, or even the life. Also that this can be avoided. Disaster can be avoided. And for this, it is necessary to start learning right now. And the other concept is that of resilience, applied in the risk management, is facing to a hazardous event, the capacity to withstand the impact without breaking, to adapt to the condition temporarily, and quickly recover. Finally, to turn out to be better is what we call in engineering build back better, build back wiser. This concept is summarized in a spring, in fact. Every year, I finish with this, we commemorate, we cannot celebrate disaster, but commemorate a day in October 13, a day for disaster risk reduction, to display all these recommendations. Thank you very much for your attention.
Okay, thank you, José Macharé, for your impressive okay, thank you. And impressive work on this very, very special theme for the engineers about the disaster risk management. Now I leave the floor to the last presentation for this session, and we'll give the floor to Firas Diab. Firas is our chair of Young Engineers and Future Leaders Committee of WFEO, and he will talk about young engineers, of course, initiatives. And yeah, our colleague comes from Lebanon, please.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Firas Diab. I'm the chair of the Young Engineers Future Leaders Committee in the WFEO since 2019. I'm really delighted today to be part of this event happening here at UNESCO and representing the young engineers of WFEO and other organizations that we are collaborating with, which focus on the work of young engineers. Today's presentation or today's talk will focus on the Young Engineers Initiatives on SDG 13. First of all, this is like a table of contents of this presentation. I will give a brief about our vision and mission as a Young Engineer Future Leaders Committee, then the role of Youth Committee in UN Policy and Engineering. We will go to the contribution to SDG 13, our strategic plan for 2022-2023, COP27, and our path previously to COP26, and also our collaboration with other organizations like FedEx, SPEED, European Young Engineers, and others. You know, we are a motivated team of young engineers. We represent different members which are all part of the WFEO. We are working together in order to have the voice of young engineers heard as well, and in order to create an ecosystem which encourages the work of young engineers that will be the future leaders of the coming years. We are also working on achieving the UN Sustainable Development Goals, and definitely this is one of the biggest work that WFEO in general is working on. You know, I'm putting here one of our main topics or main issues that we're tackling. We're working on SDG 13, which is the climate action or issues related to climate, and the importance of get the young engineers to do work on the issues of climate, and the importance of having all the initiatives collaborated together and to put forces together in order to reach into concrete solutions in this issue. You know, as we all know that youth are a critical stakeholder in reaching SDG 13 targets. Youth engagement in the UN policies is vital in order to establish initiatives to accelerate progress. Young engineers are essential in providing solutions to meet these targets. We need to coordinate the capacity between the community of young engineers and the UN youth in order to be fully deployed. And we need always to aim for engineering community where a diverse and inclusive membership can work towards innovative climate mitigation strategies while engaging young engineers, women, and to control how to combat climate change. We have established, like 2 years ago, as part of our committee, the YEFL, the working group on SDG 13. We have established this group in order with aims, objectives, and with expected results. Our aim was to establish strategy that defines how young engineers can contribute to SDG 13 and also to the WFEO Climate Emergency Declaration in 2019. Our objectives, we wanted to collect and record the best practices and the challenges faced by young engineers from Africa, Americas, Asia, Europe, and Middle East. We need to investigate the gaps and define the climate action strategy by young engineers, and we need to assist with the analysis of the technical, economical, and environmental feasibility of sustainable development proposals and the implementation of best practices to achieve SDG 13. The projected results, the role of WFEO young engineers in SDG 13 needs to be defined and deployed by the committee, which is representing the different contents, different parts of the world, and definitely we are collaborating with other youth organizations like YAG, UCAN, and UNMGCY, the major group. The insights gained so far, these are the insights from 2019 up till 2022. Insight number 1, work with other youth networks to provide a unified youth voice. Insight number 2, help young professionals and youth make an impact. Insight number 3, partner with specialists to bridge existing gaps. For insight number 1, we will put here our journey to COP26, how it started by collaboration between key youth organizations, formal endorsements from different NGOs, such that the International Secretariat of Water and the Global Water Partnership. We shared widely with governmental delegations, media, NGOs, and the 2021 UNFCCC Climate Champions. We collaborate with young professional and youth networks to organize integrational dialogues and events to amplify youth voices. And definitely, we do believe that different youth networks have different differences. We try to collaborate together and partner to learn that diverse would give strength for young engineers. We ended up having a declaration. This declaration was signed by different groups, WFEO and other groups, YONGO, the major group, and we collaborated with Engineers Without Borders. And the policy recommendation was presented at COP26 with 12 recommendations. All the details of this policy or of this climate declaration is made available on WFEO website. Also, a more comprehensive report for the group, for the work of the Young Engineers Future Leaders is made available outside in a hard copy, also available as a link on the event which is published by WFEO and UNESCO. This is our presence as a working group in the journey to COP26. Insight number 2, which is help other youth and young professionals make an impact. There may be knowledge gaps. Networks can help each other. One of our major observations was that the barrier many youth face is understanding the structures, the systems, and the process around negotiations and policy making. Our response to this barrier was by capacity building training sessions to help interested youth make an impact in discussions and policymakers, including at the UNFCCC. This is the capacity building roadmap. It started back in May up to October. Several of these events were done, like training sessions for young engineers from WFEO and outside WFEO. This is the last event which happened in October. It's for engineering response to climate change with different young engineers from different groups. The second one was about COP27 simulation, what to expect at COP27 and how to maximize the impact of young engineers. Third one was for the Asia Water Forum 2022, the establishing the young water professional networks. And the final one was the EN Roads Climate Workshop. This was done in collaboration with MIT. And it also, all these webinars or training sessions give insights and give information for young engineers and youth who are working on the issues of SDG 13. Insight number 3 is the partnering with specialists to bridge gaps. We all know that specialists provide guidance and build understanding in knowledge. Initial knowledge gaps were in the landscape of policy making and presenting policy to policymakers. Policy advice, for example, from the World Green Building Council, from ISW, from the United Nations Major Group for Children and Youth, from the UN Secretary General Youth Advisor on Climate Change. We have exchanged ideas with all these. And we have also highlighted to young engineers the importance of pre-negotiation engagements with negotiation blocks. This is our current plan, which is continuing up to 2023. Theme 1 is the climate policy recommendations. Theme 2, business environmental climate policy. Theme 3, the capacity building for youth and young professionals. And theme number 4, the strategic engagements. This is, I will finalize my presentation with an event which is happening very soon in COP27 on the 10th of November in Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt. This event is organized by WFEO, the International Federation of Consulting Engineers, FEDEC, the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association, the Association of Commonwealth University, ACIU, Moravian University, and the International Water Association, IWA. This event will be happening on the 10th of November. The panel will consist of young engineers from the different organizations and will feature an integrational dialogue between lawmakers and young leaders to address the topic, and will provide case studies from across the world to showcase perspectives from developed and developing countries, SIDS, and LDCs. Finally, on the way towards COP27 and the participation in COP26, we have arranged or participated in the High-Level Political Forum 2021 by creating a side event on the deploying global youth capacity in UN policy and engineering in SDG 13. Also, we have learned a lot from the collaboration with international organizations like EYE and FEDEC, and these are a part of the joint webinars that we have organized together. And the final one was the participation in the 7th Annual Multi-Stakeholder Forum on Science and Technology and Innovation. We have participated in May 6, 2022 in a topic, preparing the future engineering workforce to achieve the SDGs through multi-stakeholder engagement. And this is one of the good events that we have been putting an added value in it. Thank you very much. Thank you for all your time.
Okay, thank you very much, Firas. As you see, it's important to have your voice to listen to, and of course your ideas for the future. It's very important to have youth in the room. Otherwise, everybody with the white hair is not so good. So now it's time to finish this session. But before we leave for a small break, I must say that to you that we are a little bit delayed, half an hour maybe. So I will encourage you to be very, how to say, very frugal in this 15 minutes interval, and really I will invite you for an exciting roundtable afterwards, because the moderator is our colleague from UNESCO, Macharé, that will be, of course, better than I was here in this moderator. So thank you very much for your attention. Maybe you can join me with applause to our presenters. So, okay, thank you. The break is on the -1 floor, not ground zero. So, okay.